I hit the start streaming button.
You did, okay. Get refresh here and see if I get anything.
Well, it's just started.
Well, I didn't get a notification, but I did get a little symbol by the subscription. There it is. Notification just came through.
Well, it's nice when it works.
Well, add to queue. I don't want to add it to queue. I want to go there.
You want to go live, huh? YouTube. There are times. Hey, people are starting to show up. You want to go live, huh? I see a couple of you. Welcome. We'll see how lively our show gets this time. Last week was so lively, it was amazing. At 225 messages, I think it said, at the end. It was quite a good conversation. Just kept going and going and going. That was great.
Yes, it did.
Vanessa V says, hey, I'm finally on time. Hi, Vanessa V. Adam Mohammed says, hi, Siofra. Hi, Adam. How are you all guys doing? Ian says, welcome, everybody.
You know, we probably have better, sharper.
Oh, you mean turn on the light?
On some of the lights,
We
yes.
forgot to turn on the light. Apparently, we're sitting in the dark.
Hopefully, we won't have to like block it and then redo it. But
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Adam wants to know how we are. Me, I'm actually doing pretty good. I had that bit of a scare, so, you know, it was like a little bit anxious there for a bit. You're going to cover me up for a second to refocus me, so don't panic.
Just make sure it
I guess we'll see how that worked.
looks about the same. I don't see any difference, but it looks fine.
Yep, I should be coming back any second now. All right, I'm still there. I see you. So, John, yeah, we had a bit of a scare because one of my clients came down with COVID, so it was a little bit panicky for a while until I could get some home tests.
Oh, now it's
and find out that I wasn't actually.
It took you totally out of focus.
It did?
Yes, you're completely unfocused.
All right. Ian is going to fix me now.
I hope.
I hope.
Make things better, not worse.
All right. We'll try this again and see what happens.
You're still not in focus.
No, you haven't caught up yet.
Right. That's true. See if it refocuses this time.
It looks like I'm in focus to
Yes,
me.
you are.
Okay, good. We're good. So, yeah. So anyway, I got a home test and I was clear. I took it Wednesday and Friday just to make sure. So I was very grateful that my client was wearing a KN95 mask when I was working on her for over an hour in a very small space. So Jonathan says, hi, everyone. Oops, come back here. I waited too long. Siofra Ian, on Friday I read the idea that a pyramid is a 3D representation of what the 2D pentagram is. Does the pyramid symbol hold any meaning for you?
Not in that fashion. For me, it's not related to the pentagram.
Yeah, I've actually never related to the pentagram because the pentagram has 5 points and the pyramid's got 4 sides. But
Or it could have 3. But
well, yeah.
There are 3-sided pyramids.
I guess so. But the actual pyramids are 4-sided, like the big ones in Egypt. So I associate that. And I associate the pyramid one on top of the other like this with the points up as a part of like making a cone of energy when I cast my circle. So a lot of times I visualize it kind of that way. It's like I got the 4 quarters and then the acacia above and below.
You know, if they had a 5-sided pyramid, I guess if you took a 5-sided one and then brought each side down with its point, you'd basically have a pentagram.
Yeah.
You could unfold it into a pentagram if it was a 5-sided one, but the 4-sided ones I just consider as associated with the 4 elements or the 5 elements, counting
the point at the top being the acacia.
Basically.
Or spirit.
I was thinking of the bottom of it, but anyway, same thing. Center of the pentagram. But anyway,
Yeah, so the pyramid doesn't really hold any special meaning except as a cool geometric shape. Although I remember being in them when I was in Egypt and going through an initiation ceremony there. That was a different life, not this one. So Luna says, "Hi, Siofra and Ian. Are you feeling better now?" Yes, a little bit of congestion, but nothing more than usual from my allergies.
especially after my surgery, extremely good.
Yay!
So I'm so happy.
Eddie says, "Hi, all. Glad to make it today." Hi, Eddie. Glad you could join us. Ruth says, "Hi, all." Hi, Ruth. So Luna says, "Hi, Jono." And everyone's saying hi to everybody else. Jonathan says, "Spirit above instead of the top point of the pentagram."
Yeah, I don't think it really fits. I mean, you can kind of force fit it, but for myself, that wouldn't be the way I would interpret a pyramid at all.
Yeah. I do have a glass pyramid that I picked up at Goodwill that has a goddess figure on it. And the idea is a pyramid shape will help focus energy, sort of like the conical hat. It's sort of bring energy down and focus it at its base.
I have wondered about the old dunce caps.
Well, that's what I was
If
leading
they actually
to.
had the
That was the idea.
purpose, yeah.
That was the point, actually. Haha. Of the dunce cap was to help somebody who was having difficulty and having trouble focusing to actually focus their energy into the brain, kind of thing. But then, of course, it became something else. Like we love to turn things into things that they weren't to start with. So whatever. So John says, "Thanks, you guys. You're awesome." Heather says, "Love, goodwill." Yes, love, goodwill.
Yep.
I got it. It took me a second. I'm thinking love and goodwill, that kind of thing. But yeah, I get a lot of good stuff from Goodwill. And it's cute. It's like a little blue one. It's all a nice color. You can just open it up and put things inside of it, which I actually haven't used it for yet, but I have it on my nightstand in case I am suddenly inspired to put something in it.
Sometimes I start using things way years after I get them.
So Luna says, "The cap never helped me, but I used to love standing in the corner."
Yeah.
Eddie says, "I have so many questions I've been meaning to ask. I made a list of them in my notes so I can remember because I kept missing the lives." Well, good.
Well,
That's what we want. Questions. We're all about answering the questions.
Or attempting. Anyway.
Or, yeah, trying to answer as best we can. But yeah, so yay. So start off, asking questions, and we'll see where we end up. So we're waiting for the questions now.
Or other comments.
Or other comments. Jonathan says, "In the southern hemisphere, the sun, moon, and stars move from right to left across the sky. I am ignoring this when I study and practice. I still use clockwise for attraction. Should I care?" Well, I mean, it depends. It's like there's a lot of people in the southern hemisphere who do things opposite because of that. And they decide that they care. And, you can raise energy and dismiss energy in either direction. It's just you have to commit to, in a ritual, doing it one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think I'd make that commitment I'd decide permanently on what way I was going to do it and do it that way, which is what I've done. I use the standard clockwise and Deosil for banishing.
Deosil is clockwise.
Deosil is counterclockwise.
No,
Widdershins,
Widdershins
right.
is counterclockwise. Deosil is sunwise, the Deo sun, which is clockwise. And
So,
yeah, I mean, I was at when I was at one of the medicine wheel weekends that we did. There was a woman who was leading a healing circle, and we started doing it, clockwise. And then this annoying individual, I shall say, interrupted what we were doing and started, announcing that in other parts of the world they went in the other direction. So why did it matter? Why were we doing it this way and not some other way and whatnot? And she actually, fine, let's go the other way. And energetically, it was an interesting experience because we had been going around clockwise for probably about 5-10 minutes already, raising energy to heal one of the medicine men. and it took about as long as we had been going one direction, going the other direction before we could start
Or
building
got
up
back
energy.
to even, and
Yeah, and before we could start building energy again, and I thought that was just a very good lesson in how energy
consistency.
works.
It's way more important to do it consistently the same way, and you get your repetitions in.
Yeah,
Than yeah.
he was just plain annoying though. He did that at the sweat lodge and a bunch of other things. I mean, he was a good example of how not to behave when you're in someone else's ritual space and participating in their cultural traditions. You should shut up, ask questions if you need to, but don't call them out on how you think they're doing it wrong since it's not your tradition. It's just annoying. He was one of those people. So Adam says, I read on a forum that someone is able to create a servitor without having any creative visualization skills. Can you all explain how exactly this is possible and why exactly is CV is not necessarily creative visualization is not necessarily needed? I have absolutely no idea. I think they might have a lot of creative fantasy life.
The first question I would ask is if creating those servitors that way gets any concrete results whatsoever. And if it doesn't, then don't worry about it.
Yeah. And really, if someone can do it that way, great for them. I think it needs a little more than that, but that's me.
You should make sure that they actually work. Anybody can say they make a servitor or an elemental or a golem.
I know. They can say anything they want.
But, unless you've seen one actually work and have concrete results, then I'd question it.
We're skeptics, let's put it that way. So Shay says, hello, all good to see and hear you, Siofra. Good to hear you, Ian. Hi, Shay. Thank you for joining us. And Jonathan says, thanks for joining on your lunch break. We agree. We're always glad to see you pop in and say hello. Yep. Eddie says, I have noticed a selenite palm stone I was sleeping with had been giving me long and vivid nightmares. When I removed it, the bad dreams went away. Is this normal for selenite or a sign to cleanse it? No, it's not normal for selenite on its own, and selenite, generally speaking, doesn't require cleansing. It's sort of a self-cleansing stone. So I would suspect that your nightmares might have been trying to give you a message, and unless you're having a reaction to like a food additive or a chemical of some kind that can give you nightmares, like I have with melatonin and kava kava. Generally speaking, nightmares happen because the dreams that preceded them weren't being paid attention to well enough. The message it's trying to get through is like desperate. It's trying to get your attention. But who knows? I mean, you may be one of those rare people that's allergic to selenite. So, yeah, I can't say for sure, but I know as a general, I use my selenite to cleanse my aura before going to sleep. I use it for helping to reduce inflammation in my body when I have an infection somewhere or just a pain somewhere, and it helps to pull it out. It sort of brightens my energy field, and I sometimes sleep with it, and it's not giving me nightmares. So it might be something specific to you or a coincidence that it was something else giving you nightmares that happened at the same time as the selenite under your pillow and then taking it out, because that's another thing that happens a lot. Things that happen near one another, the human brain automatically wants to make a connection between them. So, causation and, what's the other word I'm looking for? Being close to the event, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the cause of the event. Like how many people believe that the flu vaccine gives them the flu when there's no way it could, because there's no actual living virus in the vaccine. But enough people have been late getting their flu shot or got a different strain of the flu that wasn't covered by the shot. And if they got it right after they got the shot, probably means they already had it before they got the shot, but they're convinced because they got the shot, they got sick. These two things are clearly connected when they're not. So it's always important when you're doing magical work to look at that as a possibility, because, we jump to conclusions fairly readily because of just the way our associative brain works. So hopefully that's helpful. So do an experiment and see if you can figure it out. Ian says hi to Shay. Heather says, I can't stand people like that. Oh, like the people at the, yeah, I can't either. Annoying people. It's me says, Siofra, what do you think about love spells? Okay, we've covered this subject a number of times, and my feelings are always the same. I think love spells are a bad idea because your best chance for having a sustained loving relationship with another individual is to be a true individual yourself. And if you're using magic to try and attract that person to you, then you're sort of using a glamour kind of a thing. And you're trying to obscure your nature that because you don't think you're good enough, for the person that you are attracted to, and it sort of falls apart after a period of time. The only real way to get a healthy relationship with someone else is to develop yourself and get to know who you are and then know what is and isn't okay with you. You have to be well defined enough to know what is and isn't good behavior, something that you're willing to put up with or live with or whatever. And if you're taking that extra step using magic to try and compel someone close, to come into your sphere, and they're not attracted to the real you. And then there's always the question, if you do that, do they really love me, or they only love me or think they love me because I did the spell? And then all sorts of other things happen. Threads start to be pulled out and fall apart. So I don't recommend them. Almost everyone I know has tried them at least once, including myself, and have had some serious backlashes. So, Desideradum says, hey there, had a question probably Ian might enjoy. Will crystallizing the aura prevent our natural spiritual development? Will that keep someone from going to heaven? Did you answer this?
I want to start with the first part. I'll let you get the second part.
Okay.
I haven't seen the term crystallizing the aura, but I think it's probably similar to what Barden talks about when he talks about, let me get closer here, when he talks about mummifying the aura. And the idea is to make it solid so that negative effects can't enter. And he just says it in passing, and he doesn't really explain it much. I don't know, but that would be my fear, was that it would stop your progress until you undid it. That you could, you couldn't change and grow because it stops all change. So I've never tried it, and Barden doesn't say enough about it, but that's my thought, that it probably would.
And since I don't believe in heaven and you don't believe in heaven, it wouldn't stop us from going to heaven because we're not going there anyway. But yeah, I don't know that that would have an effect. It's a good question. It's interesting anyway. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I'm undecided on it.
I think that natural fluidity in your aura is an important quality that it has because then it expands and contracts depending on your situation. And it was actually crystallized. I think Ian is right that it would stop certain kinds of growth because you were solid. But I don't know exactly what you mean by that. So if there's something else, you can illuminate us.
I just, it's something I don't have any experience with.
So Jonathan says, thanks guys. I personally mix it up with being in the Southern Hemisphere. I follow the Southern Hemisphere wheel of the year, but stick to the Northern Hemisphere clockwise versus anti-clockwise. Well, we do have the timepieces of clocks that we go with that are in all hemispheres. So, I'm pretty sure that the clock down in South America or south of the border doesn't go backwards. That's just the water going down the toilet, but not the clock. So you can always, tag it onto that. So Jonathan says the Dunning-Kruger effect is the idea that people are often too incompetent to realize how incompetent they are. I'm concerned about this in my personal magical practice. How concerned should I be? Well, if you're questioning whether or not you might be subject to that, you probably are in the clear, because people who are actually experiencing the Dunning-Kruger effect are completely and absolutely
Usually
confident in their ability and have zero questions about what they're doing. So you're probably fine. Yeah. And I think that's true of a lot of things. User Nad says, why do who do spells ask for money if they can make a money spell to make the endlessly rich? Is all this spell casting just a fraud? Well, a lot of it probably is, but I mean, some of it is just putting together a kit based on a book, like the 5,000 spells, for example. And, the idea is they'll give you the ingredients and the instructions, and you have to do the spell in order to make it work. And if it's not supposed to work, you won't be able to make it work. And so then they're in the clear, karmically speaking.
Yeah, if it's a genuine magical thing, the money exchange can be used as symbolic for the energy exchange, and you're giving something for what you want to get out of this.
Well, that's true too, because money is not in itself a bad thing. It is an exchange of energy, a form of energy exchange. And if you're not living close to someone and you can't go mow their lawn for them, or cut down their tree, or make firewood or whatever, which I had a lot of people do stuff like that for me when I lived up north. If that kind of actual energy exchange isn't possible for the work that they put in doing it, then money is an alternative.
On the other hand, if they have no money and they claim they're going to give you a spell to make you rich, kind of answers itself.
You wonder if they've ever used the spell themselves. I did that. I was on some list for a while where I was getting all these messages from psychics around the world telling me I was going to miss my lucky days and I was going to miss out, winning the lottery. And I wrote a few of them back and I said, tell you what, you give me the winning numbers, and if you're right, I will give you 10% of whatever I win. And no one ever took me up on it. And I thought, hey, they're asking for $30, which I really don't have, but they're passing on maybe $10,000 or $100,000 if I win really big. I don't understand. But yeah, so you have to decide how you want to spend your money. And like they usually say, this is for entertainment purposes only, because they don't want to get in trouble legally, because they're not promising it's going to work. That's how it works. So Violet says, hi, Siofra and Ian. I'm listening while laminating.
Oh, no, laminating.
Joey says, correlation. That's the word, thank you.
What are
does
you
not
laminating?
Equal causation. That's exactly the phrase I was trying to think of. Thank you.
I think laminating would make a good euphemism for something, but I'm not sure what.
Well, let's not even try and think.
Get too plastered and pass out. You're laminated, maybe?
I don't know. So Desideraatum says, we had a question last week about destroying malevolent entities. I've heard it's possible, but with karmic detriment. I call the method conflagration of dominion. Beastie returns to source, basically. I don't remember the question, so...
Well, and it depends on the malevolent entity. If it's a malevolent thought form that's just, come from somewhere and somebody accidentally created it and you're getting attacked by just a malevolent thought form or something, I'd have no problem about destroying it. But if it's a pre-existing entity, like if you tried to destroy the seal for one of the Solomon's goetic demons, I'm not sure it would do anything except irritate the demon, I guess, I suppose. So it kind of depends on what entity and how powerful it is, and if it's pre-existent and has a long history, or if it's something new that just cropped up.
My philosophy with that kind of thing, I mean, I have drained shadow people back into the earth and moved them out of a house kind of thing. I don't consider that's destroying. I'm just giving them back to a better environment for the people that are around them. I believe in personal boundaries and our rights to have them. So if something, no matter what, negative or positive, is invading my personal space and I don't want to have it around, I'm free to tell it to go away. And if it won't go away, then it has to deal with the consequences. So,
and I might point out that some of the most extreme practices, like practice of, I don't know how it's pronounced, it's C-H, and it's a umlaut O and a D, and it's a Tibetan practice where you feed all the malevolent energies on your life force. So the idea there is you serve all beings, whether they're positive or not. It's sort of like the Buddhist thing of harm none. They carry it to other beings and entities. So I would suggest that would be a better approach, unless something is attacking you, and then defend the hell out of yourself.
Well, we believe in self-defense. Yeah. Not everyone does.
Yeah.
There are some groups, like the light workers. I had to quit one of the light workers groups because basically it said I couldn't defend myself for any reason whatsoever, including sending back energy from someone that was sending me negative
Yeah.
stuff and giving it back directly to them.
So I'd say you're much better if you do the "and it harm none, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law" kind of thing, including, non-physical beings.
Yeah, so Luna says to Violet, laminating again? And Jonathan says, hey, you laminate a lot. It's true, she does a lot of laminating, but it keeps things from, getting destroyed, so I think it's awesome. Eddie says, yes, I only say the Selenite caused the dreams because it had happened multiple times over a period of months. Not every night I slept with it, but the few ones I did, nightmares so strange. Adam says, I heard that love spells only work when the person already has feelings for another, in that their love will amplify when the spell is done. If they already have feelings for you, there's no need to push it.
Yeah, and you know
and
what?
let it naturally nurture so that it's a stronger
I
foundation.
have at least probably 10 stories about people who did love spells and always backfired on them. I mean, it's just something that's really hard to accomplish, to just make another person love you. And, like I say, everyone I've ever heard about that had any effect at all backfired.
And if they already have feelings for you, you don't need a love spell. You need to develop a deep, intimate, and understanding relationship with good communication skills with the other person. That's what love is. Love is something that builds. Love is trust. And if you violate someone's trust by doing something against their will,
which is
what a love spell would be, then you can never have true love. What you have is a mimicry of love, and it's doomed to fail. Yeah. My opinion. But
mine too.
That's why you're asking. So, Desert says that Jonathan, fake it till you make it. And Jonathan answered, so long as I don't lose my mind and become delusional. Luna says, I totally agree with Desideratum, just like Miller states in his books. It's Me says, do fairies ever prank you? Well, sometimes they're so interested in everything I'm doing, and, I like a lot of colorful and sparkly items, and so do they. So I don't think they're trying to prank me. I just think that sometimes they just can't resist and pick something up and move it somewhere, and then I have to make them put it back. But, yeah. Nothing malevolent or malicious or anything like that.
I think it's the same way with the coyote. If I don't know how many people are familiar with the symbol, but always as a trickster or jokester, my understanding is that I guess that's not something I should talk about, but my understanding is people fool themselves, basically. Coyote intends no harm, and yet it comes out as a... Of course, some of the coyote stories are pretty awful, the Native American ones, but I think those have...
Well, it's like the mythologies of other cultures. It's the same kind of thing. The original mythologies are more accurate, I think, as far as the original knowledge that we gained from interacting with the spirit beings, and then later humans started to mold and shape the stories to fit whatever the current political climate, regardless of what you think that might be, was. So Heather says, have you or your husband ever wrote a book, and is it published? I am an author, co-author of the books about my channeling. David wrote the books about it and gave me some author credit because he's using the words that came out of my mouth and some of my own words as well. And so those are published. And it's for me, when he first sent me the first book, it was a very strange thing to read something about my life that I experienced from a completely different perspective than him from the outside of the experience, writing everything down and then deciding what was important and what wasn't. It's sort of bizarre. But no, writing is something I thought about doing any number of times, but I just never did get to the point where I was going to sit down and just write. I decided this was a better format for sharing what I do and what I know and some of my experiences and so forth, since I'm a storyteller. And writing is a form of storytelling, but so is this. So, yeah. So Jonathan says, Ian, I understand that you occasionally do a few minutes, of meditation here and there. Do you mind sharing what you've recently been meditating on?
Yeah, there hasn't been anything particularly new lately. I'm working on the Barden stuff. That's one of my constant practices. Um, I usually do some sort of a meditation on the Kundalini and pranayama for that. We actually got given a mantra at the ashram, so I use the mantra a fair bit. Um, and then I usually try to add to that some of the Kabbalistic practices from Barden's book, so I usually pronounce some Kabbalistic letters and words a bit during that.
Which are funny when they come back later and wake me up in the middle of the night singing through the ether.
So yeah, that kind of stuff. I might sit and meditate on the root chakra a little bit. I've got some Kundalini awakening, but I've not awakened Kundalini, so I have some, but it's not like going full blast. So I meditate on that a lot. I might meditate on the Dakini, or the goddess Kundalini as a goddess. That's most of them right now. I also take about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to try to reach some clarity through total silence. And then I guess you could include it in part of my meditation, as I'm using painting as part of that, art, to try to reach the divine through. And then a little bit of music listening also, both of which, if I can stop my mind while I'm doing it, I get good results. So that's my general daily stuff.
Not much. So Teresa says, hi, I'm listening while sewing. Awesome. Desert Autumn says, thanks. Crystallizing aura prevents the second death. Etheric. By heaven, I mean our choice of afterlife. It's something a few ceremonial magicians aspire to. I don't want to get stuck. Good. Good for you. Jonathan says that Desideratum asks an excellent question. If you are dealing with a lesser being like a poltergeist, should we attempt to dissolve it into nothingness or chase it away out of your space?
Maybe it's a good idea to tell them the thing with our friend in Eugene.
Well, I think we've mentioned it a few times,
Right,
but
okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
well,
it's
okay,
worth
good.
mentioning again. But that was like he invited it into his body, and it was like a primordial being that had no language,
No intellect.
no intellect,
Just raw
energy.
rampage energy. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an unusual poltergeist because most poltergeists are actually people focused.
But I'd say something like that had no intellect, no intelligence. Get rid of that sucker if you can.
Okay, so like when I was in Texas, when I first got my staff and I learned how to open up the portal between the worlds, one of the other things I had to do during that ritual was to dissolve a fire elemental that had taken the form and shape of the woman who had been meditating on having fire around her all the time. She sort of made a spirit doppelganger. And I didn't think that there was anything wrong with that at all. I was joining that fire back to the primordial fire, the center of the earth, and taking away that shape because it was harming people in the process and wasn't actually being very helpful. It was just thinking that it was actually alive when it wasn't, and so forth. And so it's not like killing something that actually is alive. It really depends on what it is exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different kinds of forces and energies that are out there. It's like on a case by case basis. There's no single way to approach what's going on.
Yeah, your best bet is to stay alert and try to observe as much as you can.
Yeah, with the shadow people that I've dissolved, in 2 cases, I found a human soul underneath the shadow person that had committed suicide, and then I crossed that spirit over so that it was gone. And when you're crossing over a human spirit, it sort of gets rid of the energy that's like stuck, that's moving everything around and so forth. So it's not like you're destroying something; you're just moving it from a place where it really doesn't belong and is causing a lot of trouble, including not letting it move where it needs to continue its process, and you're just sending it to where it needs to go in order to keep going. So with that, there's no concern on my part at all. It's like whatever's supposed to happen to them after they die is their actual choice. So Desideradum says, I would think an entity could not be destroyed. Physics says energy can't be destroyed, maybe reduced to pure energy, I guess. I think I sort of covered that. Madharma says, hola, salutations from Mexico. Hi, Madharma, thank you for joining us. Eddie says, if you have crystals on your wand, do those crystals need to be cleansed and charged as regularly as crystals that are separate from a wand? Do wands, other tools need to be cleansed, charged in general? No. You do not want to cleanse your crystals on your wand, because every time you do that, you have to start charging it all over again from zero. And if you're going to have a powerful magical tool, you don't want to cleanse it. It's like that I've never understood. It's like I don't cleanse my crystals either. Well, in the sense that I have them, surrounded by pieces of selenite. I figure any impurities in them will go away, but I use them for specific things. So if you create something that has a very specific charge, and then you go cleanse it, you might as well just start making a new one and go through the entire process.
The same thing if you've got a dedicated temple space. If you do a banishing in it, you don't want to discharge all the stuff you've got in there. So, yeah, generally banishings aren't done on a regular temple space.
That'd be like deconsecrating your church.
Kind of would, yeah. You get a strong circle built up, and you usually want to keep it. I know some ceremonial magicians banish every time they do everything, but I use the banishing ritual in a little bit different manner, so.
So Vanessa V says, how do you know if a goddess wants to work with you? I've had a couple of dreams about the Morrigan, but she doesn't talk to me directly, so I'm not sure what to make of it. Well, she could be just curious and checking you out. So, there's a lot of things that could get interested in you, especially as you progress. So, don't worry about it. If you're interested in her, you can get a statue of her, do, a prayer or a mild evocation kind of thing, a dedication kind of stuff. And if she's interested, she'll take you up on it. But, for me, when some of them have come to me, it's been obvious. And other times it's been me that's looked for some connection. So Desideradum says, I've also been told by a paranormal rescue medium, some low-level demons will actually agree to be crossed over into the light. I love that. Well, see, demons is a definitional thing, so.
Yeah, that is a definition.
Who knows what they mean by that?
Yeah.
And he says, I had a successful love spell when I was new to the craft and stupid. Moved in with her and everything, but it wasn't love. It was like an invisible brick wall was between us. I don't recommend. I concur. I think there may be undine spirits in the river behind my home. How can I tell for sure? How would I start to make contact, show my appreciation and respect to them?
Well, there probably is.
Yeah, because most rivers and water courses have undines in them, because that's sort of where they inhabit. The undines that live in the lake behind us, I could sense them. They helped to consecrate my water wand. They wanted to see it. I sort of communicated with them. I gave them a stone that was the same kind of stone that I used on the water wand as an offering. I would go down to the lake and meditate over the water, looking at the water. I met undines when I was pretty young. They taught me how to swim. The humans couldn't teach me how to swim, but the undines taught me how to swim. So I had a natural connection with them to start with. So if you really want a connection with the undines, being in water and around water is the best way. A natural water course, river or lake or something like that, obviously one that's safe to be in, because you have to be careful around places now for pollution and people. But meditating on the water and it's undines don't generally come into your house so much because they like to be outdoors in the water. So it's the only place I've actually encountered them. Although I can encounter them in my astral temple, because now I'm in a different space. So in the mental plane, I can have water where they live and stuff and exist on that plane and interact with them there. So that's something else you can do. You can try doing a mental visualization or whatever of a water area and so forth. And if you try to go to the water kingdom that way, the standard of etiquette states basically if you enter their kingdom, you don't approach them, you wait for them to approach you because it's considered rude to go in and, just start chatting them up. So that's what I would recommend. So Heather says, I'm very grateful you choose to share with us through YouTube. You're welcome. I'm so glad. And actually, as a little announcement here, someone had asked about us doing a podcast, and I looked into it. We haven't done one yet, but we're going to turn some of my videos into podcasts and put them out that way, the ones that are just the regular subject, talking about a single subject, and maybe get more people to hear the information and so forth, but that'll be coming up later. Jonathan says that, Ian, thank you for sharing some of your personal meditation with us. I look up to you and it helps to get a feel for your practice.
Well, thank you, Jonathan.
And It's Me says, Siofra, do you think fairies, and I think there must be more to that question somewhere.
Nope, that's it. Do you think fairies?
I think fairies all the time. I think fairies whenever I'm in the woods and whenever I look outside and go for a walk. Kimberly Cowles Dyer says, hi, everyone. Hi, Kimberly. Thank you for joining us. Dennis Go says, hey, Siofra, can you explain how do fairies see us? Well, this is a good question. I know how spirits, generals, like ghosts and things see us. I think fairies probably see us more physically than like a ghost will see us. Human spirits only are sort of in an area of grayness because they inhabit like an in-between kind of place because they haven't quite finished where they're going. And they see the people that are gifted and, have medium abilities and so forth as a light that shows up that they're attracted to. But fairies aren't the same. I mean, fairies exist in nature, alongside nature, working with nature, with physical reality all the time. So I suspect they see our energy bodies quite readily, and maybe, judge us by that as to whether we're good or bad for them to interact with, whether they like us or not. So I don't think they see us physically like that way, like our skin so much as just all the energy parts of our aura and that kind of thing, because that's how they work with plants and so forth. Making the fluids go up and into the branches to make the leaves, and finding the nutrients under the soil and so forth. So, but that's a guess since I'm not a complete fairy. I don't know exactly for sure. Monica says, I want to talk about the Druids and how they had a language with the trees. Yes, they did. And there are Druid communities and groups and stuff out there. And they're another one of the pagan umbrella practices and so forth. They don't do circles, for example. They don't cast a circle like I do or like Ian does, because they don't believe they need that. And most of their practices are not like spell magical oriented things, but they're more serving the earth and praising the earth and worshiping the earth spirits and that kind of thing. From what I've seen, at least, I'm nowhere near an expert on that.
Yeah, I don't know much about the Druids either.
Desiratum says, at Eddie, if there's a natural waterway that isn't too polluted, if you sing to them, they like that. Be careful, they don't like you too much, though. Eddie says, I've only seen them in the water as well. How interesting. And good tip. Thank you. You're welcome. For both of us. Luna says, a very dear friend of mine recommended I watch the movie A Dark Song based on the Abramelin ritual. Wondered if you guys had seen it. It's an awesome film. I don't think we've seen that one.
No, I'd like to.
So we'll have to remember that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can send me an email with it, so because I'm easily, I move on from one subject to another, and I'll probably forget what it's called by the time this is over.
Yeah, I'd be definitely interested in that. The Abramelin ritual is something that I studied quite a bit for a while.
And didn't you do it
I
once?
tried.
Yeah.
I tried but did not succeed.
Heather says, congratulations on your all's podcast. Well, once we get it. Teresa says, yay on the podcast. All right. Great.
Yay.
Desiderata says that Eddie, also be careful of grieving, especially with Yemaya. They may want to take you home with them to make you happy again, i.e., drowned folks, allegedly. Yeah, that is a cautionary thing for sure. Balance is important when it comes to working with any of the elements, and when you work with water a lot, emotions get very intense and sometimes overwhelming. So balance what you're doing with the undines, with working like grounding on the earth and working with the trees that don't move, kind of thing, and that can help quite a bit. So it's always good to have different friends in different kingdoms.
And just from personal experience, I haven't had any negative stuff when I've worked with Yemiya. Of course, I haven't done it while grieving or anything either, but she always seems vast, just like the ocean. That's all.
Okay, so Kimberly says at Luna, no worries, my last letters in my name are different than most spellings. And he says, the first convo I had with the Fae, I was surprised because they didn't follow the strict social conversational rules people hype them up to have in myth, like not saying names, not saying sorry, etc. Well, totally. I mean, those myths are all based on fear-based superstitions that the church fed into the myths and the stories and so forth to keep people from interacting with them in the first place. And that's been my experience, is that you can't really depend upon those myths about the fairies to help you understand how to do it. And then people's expectations, I mean, I've known some people that do like the extremely formal interactions with them, and they will cooperate with it, but they probably think we're silly. Anyway, Angela says, hi, Siofra, and chat blessings to all. Happy almost Valentine's Day. May the day be filled with blessings and positive energy for all. Thank you, Angela. She also says, I know it's a hard day for some. May you be blessed 3 times more if you're struggling. Thank you. Jonathan says that Monica, druids have the best staffs.
Well, that would seem logical.
It seems like it would be. Luna says that Ian, vast like the ocean. Oh, I'm at the bottom. That's why it's not going down any farther. I caught up to everybody. Wow. So there.
Alrighty then.
But yeah, oh, here we go. Eddie says, my spirit guide revealed himself as a fey creature known as a puka. He is similar to the myths, but definitely not the same. It makes it so difficult to do proper research with all the fear-mongering. That's why, personal experience one-on-one is the best way. Find out what they want, what they like, what they're okay with, what they're not okay with. And like with all spirit beings and animals and everything out there, they're each going to have their different likes, dislikes, things that are good, things that are bad, even amongst the same type of spirit. Because, like cats, no two are alike. Some you can rub their belly, and some, that's a death sentence for a human. So Desideratum says, at Ian, yep, I heard Yemaya will take a person crying on the beach into her arms like a mother. I would not be surprised. Chili Baby says, Eddie, thank you. This has also been my experience. And Siofra, that is exactly how I feel about the origins of fairy propaganda. It's just so nice to be here. Sigh of relaxation. Well, I'm so glad. Because I tell you, when I started reading all that stuff online, I'm like, what? What are they talking about? I've been like having encounters and dealings with them since I was little. So, like 68 years that I can remember. I think that my experience trumps their whatever that is. Yeah, Angela says, puka are fascinating. I heard people used to on purpose tease them, telling them to show their horns to them. Oh no, it's never nice to tease anything. That's bad. Humans are bad that way sometimes. Heather says, I wish I knew my spirit guide. Yeah, some of us can contact them easier than others. Angela says, why would you on purpose tease and upset someone? Exactly. Who's Yemaya? She is a Orisha from the, is it from the Caribbean or both? The voodoo as well as Santeria pantheon.
Santeria, I think Yamaya is the Santeria version, and I think the Voodoo version, or one of the other versions, is it's also spelled with a J, like Jamanja. I probably haven't got that right, but
It's probably the same pronunciation but a different spelling.
Yeah, there's a slight different spelling and pronunciation. It's like there's some small differences between Voodoo and Santeria, things like that. Some of them are basically pretty much the same deity, but with slightly differing names and things. And then Voodoo has a bunch of them that Santeria doesn't, like Papa Legba. Though there are equivalents, there's a lot of slight cultural variations in those things.
So Eddie says he does like to try and scare, unnerve me sometimes, but that's the most harmful thing he's done compared to the mythology. Well, they do that to me too, and I think that that's actually to train us. I mean, I'm thinking it that way when they show me their faces, and some of their faces are like unusual, to say the least, and can appear to be, in the traditional sense, scary. And I had that one night where a whole bunch of gnomes came up, and they kept showing me different faces, and they were waiting for me to freak out. So I think part of it is like exposure to that aspect of them helps to train us out of that instant fear, anxiety response, so that then we can actually have a better communication with them. That's what I'm thinking. It's sort of like exposure therapy or something like that. I don't think it's a malicious thing in at all. I think it's actually purposeful as far as that goes, because one of them had a fairly odd looking face and wanted to know if I was scared of him. And I said, "Are you going to do any harm to me?" And he said, "No." "Then why would I be scared of you?" And so I think that's that. We have these ideas in our head. Humans have ideas of what's beauty and what's bad and good and what it would look like and so forth. And so maybe that's part of what's going on there. I try not to judge either people or Fae by their looks, because it's not necessarily any indication. Jonathan says that Heather Abramelin ritual is to meet your guardian angel. It only takes 18 months. Oh yeah, only.
And if you're going to do it according to the book, it also takes practically a fortune to be able to lay out the room right, and pine wood on all the walls.
And the amount of time towards the end you have to spend, you have to be independently wealthy, because you cannot work during that part. Eddie says the first time I asked his name, he kept changing it to more and more ridiculous things. I had to put my foot down when he said his name was Bucket. Sounds like he has a good sense of humor. Angela says he sounds very silly. Desrod says Puka. Dennis says, what fairies don't like about us that we do every day? Randomly throwing stuff all over the ground and not picking it up would be number one. Just sort of, without thinking about it, destroying things in our path and not paying attention to what's going on around us and not caring about the planet, the trees, the woods, the waterways and everything else that they have to take care of.
I mean, I see a lot of shows on TV where somebody just like pounds giant nails into a big, nice tree to like sling their hammock or something. And I always cringe when I see somebody pounding nails or things into a live tree, because they don't appreciate that.
No. Eddie says he's great, his spirit. Laud says, hello, this is my first time sending a message to you. Really enjoying your channel. Thanks for everything you do. Well, welcome, and thank you for sending us a message, because we often see that there's people there, but we don't always hear from everybody, and that's fine too. But thank you for letting us know. Chilla Baby says, has anyone else encountered or heard of blue outlined transparent beings about the size of your forearm and a large wing halo space behind them, telepathic, hang out on trees? I assume they were Fae. They probably are, but there are so many different kinds, so many different types out there. I mean,
just as many as there are individuals.
And how many ants do we have? Different kinds of ants. Just as an example of one thing that has many different forms and shapes all around the planet. And flowers. look at all the different flowers. Like, wow. So, it does, I mean, most of them are telepathic, so that would work for pretty much all of the Fae. And, it sounds like something I might have seen when I was a kid. I saw angels too when I was little, and I still see them occasionally now. So, Angela says, "Hi, Laud." Desderam says, "Ooh, Eddie, it's considered very rude to ask their names. Ask what they'd like to be called. Having their name gives you power over them. They don't need your name either." That's actually not true. That is a fallacy because we don't know our true name anymore, so there's no way that our name could give them power over us because it's only a true name that can do that. And it is a good idea to ask them what they'd like to be called, but if he didn't mind being asked what his name was, I think go with your gut, go with your experience. Angela said, "I would be jumping up and down if I saw something like that in a tree and saying, 'Hello, that sounds amazing.'" Yeah, me too. I'm always astonished when I see them in broad daylight outside and just kind of like, wow. And someone asked me last week about a black-haired she, and I hadn't seen a black-haired she. But there's other fairies that are human-sized that are not actually the she. I met one at the in front of the hydrangea bush over in the hot springs up around Blue River on 126, the place we stayed the night. And she was full grown and had darker hair, so I don't think that, I mean, there's other fairies of different sizes that aren't the she, just as a clarification. Eddie says, if he found it rude, then he hasn't said so to me. Desert said, sylphs. Well, sylphs are air spirits and very shy and hard to find. And they don't stay very long in one place, because they go, whew, they're airy and they're constantly moving about. Aphrodite says, what's a true name? Okay, so a true name would be sort of a Kabbalistic word that describes your essential nature, your entire soul, your being, and in the name itself explains everything there is to know about you. And there used to be what I would call true names way, way back in the beginning when we were first starting to go from being spirit to body. And the idea is that a true name holds all the knowledge of who you are, what you are, where you've been, where you're going, what your intent is, and so forth. And so that is what I mean when I say a true name. Angela says, "What's she?"
I think that's a good explanation myself.
She is spelled Sidhe, and it is the Celtic word for hill and fairy. It depends. I mean, they have now been adopted as the fairy folk themselves, and they're like the ancient people of Ireland that now live under the ground in the hills and so forth. The gods of Ireland are all she, so the Dagda, Bridget, and so forth were all she. And they obviously didn't all have white hair, because Bridget definitely has red flaming hair, so. Eddie says he did ask me to give him a name, though after I wouldn't call him Bucket. I settled for Boone. Well, maybe he liked the name Bucket.
I've been working with the guardian angel idea for a long time, and I have never managed to come up with the name of mine.
I don't know that
it's worth.
I don't know that they have them necessarily. So Vanessa says, "How can you find your true name?" I don't know. And it may be one of those things that you only know when you're not physical anymore at this point. Chili Baby says, "I did talk to them, laugh out loud. It was awesome. It happened at night and they could hide or be unnoticeable in the dark, only visible in the moonlight because it bounced off their energetic bodies seemingly." That is one of the easiest ways to see them is in moonlight, and in the in-between time when the sun is just coming up or just going down and the sky is sort of violet, the air gets kind of violet. Aphrodite says, "That's interesting." Julia says, "What are your thoughts on ancestor money?" I've never heard of ancestor money, so I have no thoughts on it.
Yeah, I don't get the reference either.
Yeah, you'll have to elaborate, perhaps. Angela says, wow, fascinating. Desperado says, how do you find out your true name? Akashic Records? That is really cool. It's going to be your soul name. It's going to be a name that resonates with all of your lifetimes. It's going to be your true name. And it's like, it's a word that expresses your true nature in a way that nothing else does. So that's all I can say.
Yeah, you don't really know how to find them out for sure. I certainly don't know mine.
So EM says, hello everybody, is the true name of a spirit the same thing as the names of power? You want to add something to that one?
Well, I need definition of what do you mean by names of power. Are you talking the old Kabbalistic names?
Like the guardian angels of the different spheres,
or like the tetragrammaton, or which names are we talking about?
Again, English.
They could be called names of power. In Varden's stuff, he gives some spirits and their names, and you can analyze the name Kabbalistically, and it will tell you everything about that spirit, including if you evoke it, how it will appear in general, because it can't appear different than its qualities, and its qualities and quantities of energy it uses are all combined in the name. So, but that has to be a true, proper Kabbalistic name in that instance for it to work.
So I guess we need more information on what you mean by names of power. Monica says, I haven't seen the Faeries, I think, per se, but when the wind blows the leaves off the ground and they swirl in the air, I feel that the Faeries are in there traveling through the leaves. It's probably true. They like to play. They think we are very funny to watch. It's one of the reasons why they do see some of us in some sense, when we were getting back to that other question, because I know they think we're hysterical when we have sex because we really look silly, and we have very strange expressions on our faces, and we make weird noises. And I met one that way because he started laughing and giggling and closing his eyes, covering his eyes up with his little fingers. So, yeah. Jonathan says, I don't recommend trying to find your true name. You can go to a professional psychic to maybe find it. What's the point? I would rather not know my true name. I can only see pitfalls on that path. Well, I mean, if you found out your true name, then you wouldn't be able to tell anybody about it, right? Because then you'd be worried that they would have power over you.
I don't really see what advantage it has unless it's, if it was Kabbalistically accurate, then you could analyze it by the Kabbalah, but otherwise I don't know what it would tell you about yourself unless you understood it completely.
Aphrodite says, what's your thought on tree magic? I work with them all the time, so I have a lot of thoughts. Mostly my wands are made from living branches, and so I work with tree spirits on a regular basis. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by tree magic, so you're talking about the runes, using them. So Desideradum says it is a special gift for a Fae to manifest. Yes, it is. Desideradum says my true name may actually be Bucket. You are a card. Angela says, I think they like my candles. Sometimes I see little blue orbs flying around my candles or little green wisps. Yeah, that can happen. Ian had a little fire sprite that got stuck in his magic lamp once and was rather upset because she couldn't get out until he lit it again.
So it kept knocking over things to try to knock over the lamp.
Trying to get out of it.
Things kept trying to, knock it over, open it.
Eddie says, had an intense dream recently. A black comet hit the ocean while I was watching from a ship. I wasn't scared. Instead, I held my talisman necklace and spoke the name of my goddess Hecate. Thoughts? Interesting dream image. Something unseen that's a danger that's coming, but it's not going to harm you because you're already protected. Sounds like a good thing. So I don't know what else to say about that. Vanessa V says, the she woman in my dream told me her name. She didn't tell me not to tell anyone, but still, I thought not to because I wasn't sure I should. Any thoughts?
My thought is always ask before you tell someone in general. It's just polite.
Yeah, she may not have told you not to tell anyone, but you might want to ask her if it's okay first, is what it is.
Yeah.
Monica says,
Tetragrammaton.
Grammaton. I've heard this term recently in laments terms, layman's terms. What is that?
Basically, that what most people are talking about when they say that are four Hebrew letters, Yod He Vav He, and it is a term that means something on the order of I am that I am or something like that. But basically, you can use it Kabbalistically, and Barden explains how to use it for a whole bunch of purposes. So the Tetragrammaton is a Kabbalistic name, and it was sacred enough that they would only pronounce it once a year, and they gave it the term Tetragrammaton to talk about it
Without saying it?
without saying it. Yeah.
It's like the name that may not be spoken.
Basically, it's
Except in secret.
mother, father, son, and daughter. It's a fourfold thing, the four elements, that kind of associations.
And he says, agreed about the Fae, Desideratum, and laugh out loud, yeah, I do call him Bucket sometimes still. E.M. says, I saw the expression true name of a spirit in the Book of the Dead, an ancient Egyptian funerary text, but then I saw the expression names of power in Kabbalah.
Okay.
And I think words of
Well,
power.
yeah, I'd say in Kabbalah the names of power would be exactly what they sound like. If and the only place I know you can find this information is in Barden's book, but the proper pronunciations of the names are very powerful. And if it's in a Kabbalistic book, you can assume it's, as long as it hasn't been corrupted over the years, it's probably still pretty good.
And then again, when being baptized, I received another name, a secret one, considered to be my real name. So it seems that the meaning varies. Yes, and that's because we're humans and we like to label things and define things. And sometimes in defining things, we get ourselves very confused because we can use the same word to mean 5 different things. But if we all use the same word and we think that everyone is using the word the way we use the word, then confusion follows. So Jonathan says, Aphrodite, I will never forget. I once asked Siofra how to get better in magic and meet Fae. Siofra said, make friends with the trees. She was 100% right. The trees are good people. Thank you. I'm glad you took my advice. How is that stone circle coming, by the way? Chili Baby says, to know your true name, if you're in tune with your intuition in this way, couldn't you try getting into a meditative space and asking your higher self what your true name is? I did something like this. He's not finished. I found it really healing to know it and was surprised how quickly and gently it came forward.
Good.
Good? Yeah.
I found my, whatever spirit being is working with me is very, has been in the past uncooperative about a name, but I haven't taken that as a big importance.
Like a block.
Yeah.
Jacqueline says, hi all, better late than never. Hope all is well. Hi Jacqueline, thank you for joining us. And yes, things are good at this end. Kimberly says, I've been practicing and studying the Elder Futhark runes. I try to call on the Norns to help me to see the full picture, but not sure if I reach them. Sometimes I believe I do. Any suggestions? Jacqueline says, ask Odin, which would be a good suggestion. I don't use the Futhark runes right now, so I don't have any practical experience with trying to get them, but accessing your intuition and trying to get into a meditative state before you use them, studying the individual runes individually, independently of one another. When we were studying the runes there for a while as a group, one of our members made like a rune for everybody, like on a piece of paper, and then the meaning on the back, and then we carried that with us and looked at the rune and thought about the meaning.
I always found Edred Thorson's books very interesting on the subject. But I would say the idea of trying to call on the Norns, you can actually get a significant amount from that if you meditate on them and get in contact. I've definitely done this with generally with the Indian deities, not Native American, but
Hindu.
From India, Hindu, yeah. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely good. It'll put you in the right mindset, and you probably will make some contact with that energy if you try to let it in like that.
EM says, thanks for your answers. Aphrodite says, I love the trees. I feel very connected with them, but I have no idea how to start working with them. And Eddie says, find a nice tree, sit at the base, and talk to it in your head or out loud. And Angela says, I have a favorite tree that I visit when I take walks. She drops me wand sticks, and when I lean into her branches, she gives me warm energy. I sat with her when I wasn't feeling well, and once and felt better almost instantly. And yeah, I meditated at the base of the same tree for quite a long period of time, and probably every day during that time frame. And I would imagine, I would close my eyes and I would feel the bark on my back, and I would imagine that I was a part of the tree and not a person anymore. And so I would imagine being in the trunk of the tree and reaching up through my branches and feeling that life force energy flowing up into her leaves. She was a cedar tree, and then feeling the sun um, on on the top of them and the wind through my branches, and then going down into the earth through the trunk and down through the roots and going down into the ground, which is why I created the sacred tree meditation. It was sort of based on my actual experience with working with the trees. And trees are very willing to communicate with us. They tend not to judge us unless you just go into a forest that has been recently hacked to death. They sometimes are mad. I had that happen
But
once.
it's really helpful if you can try not to think about other things than nature when you're trying to communicate with them. Try to make yourself free of all the societal stuff and just be clear and open. Probably the only advice I could suggest.
Go back up there. Teresa says that Aphrodite, same here. I'd love to learn to work with the trees. I live in a beautiful forest. They are the best. Aphrodite said, thank you, Eddie. And Angela says, is there a way I could help her come home with me? I sense she wants to follow me, if that makes sense. Are you talking about the tree? Ask her for a branch. That's how I make my wands. When I had to leave that tree that I meditated at the base of for like a year, and they were going to cut her down, and I knew it, I went and talked to the tree and asked her if I could help preserve her spirit and take her back with me, and cut a living branch and she put her spirit in the branch so that I could preserve her energy. So that's how I did it. Kimberly says, yes, I have Thorson's books. Thank you both. You're welcome. Eddie says, agreed with Jacqueline. Aphrodite says, they really are the best, Teresa. I feel so drawn to the one that's around my house. Jonathan says, Siofra, that's not fair. You're not allowed to remember the things I've said I'll do. No stone circle. I'm going to clear a circle in the forest for my Mabon and send you a photo. Well, okay, I'm glad I, reminded you of that. Give you a little push in that direction because, we both thought that was an awesome idea, and I've been wondering if you had it done yet. Now I know. Desidratum says, at EM, both my father and my grandfather gave me a special name. We're indigenous American. No one calls me by those names. It's like a secret name. My Hispanic friends have to have like 5 middle names. Yeah, and most of them, they're saints. They name them after saints. Dennis Go Home says, sorry for being too off topic in the chat, but there is a question I can't keep out of my mind. Once someone told me that fairies can't feel anything like pain, comfort, sadness, etc. Is it true? No, it is not true. Fairies are very emotional. They feel joy, they love laughter, they love the plants, they are sad when things die. They're emotive beings. So I don't know who said that, but I think that they're wrong in my experience. Certainly I've never felt a standoffish and unfeeling fae. Vanessa says, is it true beginners shouldn't work with certain gods and goddesses? For some reason I feel strongly attracted to goddesses I've seen others said they are not for beginners, like the Morrigan and Hecate. Well, if you're doing your shadow work, you're probably okay because they're going to make you do the shadow work.
Yeah.
If you're going to get in touch with the dark goddesses, I mean, I got in touch with Kali pretty early. So I think it depends on the individual. There's
Yeah,
no one size fits all.
you need to understand what they call the dark forces or such, or the dark goddesses, that those have a good purpose. They're not just like a destruction, but they serve part of the general purpose.
There's nothing wrong with the dark
Right.
or the night.
For example, Kali is often described with a garland of human heads around her neck, and that in that case is a symbolic meaning. That's what she helps you get in control with. She gets your head.
Your mind.
As far as, well, yeah, your mind and
feelings, emotions.
Well, it gets control over them. You get control over your mind and where it wanders and things like that. So, and there are a lot of tools that look or sound frightening and dangerous, but are actually aimed at removing your own weaknesses, which towards some people believe you should have no mercy. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
But yes, I mean, what they call the dark goddesses are just some of the natural forces of the universe, and a lot of power is in the dark and in the night, because it's like there's balance. We live in a chaotic universe. We live in the middle of explosions that are happening around us constantly. Stars are exploding, things are crashing together. It's like it's part of nature. It's not like separate from nature. And we have this weird philosophy kind of thing that some people get into, that we want everything to be peaceful, calm, serene, with no conflict whatsoever. And conflict in itself isn't necessarily bad. It's how you deal with conflict, whether you can resolve conflict, whether conflict tells you this is a situation you need to leave because it's not good for you. I mean, there's a lot of different ways of looking at that stuff. So Angela says, yes, I am. Good. Eddie says, to be honest, Dennis, I don't know if anyone would be able to answer that, since we are all humans and feelings are subjective, but I think they can, to be honest. That would be whether the fairies had feelings. Kimberly says, oops, meant I just have one book of Thorsten's.
Okay, that one I'm not familiar with. I don't remember what the names of the ones I have. I've got 2 of them somewhere.
Angela says, and thank you for the advice. She's alone without other trees around her and seems to like my company. Yes. And, trees are very herd community oriented. I mean, they now know scientifically that there's the mycelium network that is underneath the ground, connects trees together, and can connect them up to several miles away. And so even if there's not a tree right next to her, there might be some trees that she can connect with, at least peripherally. And when a tree knows it's about to die and give up its life force, it will put its energy into its roots and push the energy out into the soil around it to feed the other trees and other plants and things that are around it. So everything is always a give and a take, is a cycle.
Yeah, well, that's a good example of the purpose of fungus is, obviously the communication, but in its right spot, it's great. You just don't want it in your cottage cheese.
Fungus in my cottage cheese.
Well, just kind of an idea. You might consider that, a dark or negative thing, but really it's just
where it is.
It's break down things. It's doing its natural job.
Right.
Not trying to irritate you by getting into your cottage cheese.
Just doing its thing like it's supposed to. Aphrodite says, anything about red caps? Are you meaning a hat? Are you meaning a mushroom? I don't know what you're talking about. So please illuminate.
The Amanita muscarias have
red caps, yeah.
Would be the most common.
Dennis says, thank you so much, Siofra. Have a nice day. You're welcome, and thank you for coming. Aphrodite says, like I know they dislike humans, but why exactly? What, fairies? They don't dislike humans. They dislike stupid people, of which there are many. I mean, unfortunately, we don't give them a lot of reasons to like most of us, and so they're somewhat, standoffish and don't trust everyone, because there are very few people you can actually trust out there.
Well, and very few people are in harmony with nature. Get in harmony with nature and they'll like you generally. It's one of those kind of things. People are so out of harmony, and I would say that would be the reason if there was one mostly. People are just too out of harmony.
Well, yeah, they're separated from the world at large, and so they think they have to find ways to have meaning in a different sense than just being with nature and being a part of nature. So Luna says, Siofra, that must have been devastating for you that they cut the tree down, which you meditated under. I always get very emotional when trees are cut down, especially when they're not diseased. Yeah, that's why I asked the question, though. But, because of that, because of the situation I was in and the road that it took, it informs my magic to today. All of my magic with my wands is always with the living spirit, the being. I'm working with the tree spirit when that becomes the wood that houses the crystals or the energy or whatever that I put in it. And, it's like sometimes early on, things like that can happen that really inform your progress, your path, how you interact with the nature and things and spirits and beings and stuff that are around you. So it was one of those things. Angela says, people have said similar about one of my matrons, Arachne, how you shouldn't work with her, how she's dangerous. I have only ever known her to be kind, though she doesn't deny a destructive side to her. People say you shouldn't work with some. I say if you're respectful when you reach out, what can it hurt? People may have been disrespectful and gotten a bad experience. Well, and that kind of energy is not something everyone can handle. So we're all in different stages of development, and a lot of people just don't want to deal with the intensity that what they call the dark goddess's energy brings with it, because we're talking something that could destroy a continent, an earthquake or volcanic eruption, or Pele being a really good example of that one. And I had Pele come to me when I was in Hawaii. So it's a personality thing and a where you are in your spiritual path, which may have more to do with past lives than the ones that you don't remember than and the ones that you do.
Energy compatibility also, as we know, we made something for someone once, and they couldn't wear it for long and had to get acclimatized to it. And it can be the same kind of thing with the goddesses or gods. You might need to get acclimatized to their energy. This was a positive device. It was to help the person out.
That was the protection talisman we made.
But he had to wear it just a few minutes at a time and then gradually build it up.
Yeah, because the energy was so foreign to his energy and his experience, and he really was in rather intense effect, which was a surprise to us because we'd not thought about that. Ian and I have got some pretty potent objects around us on a daily basis, and we handle them and work with them all the time. It just didn't click that we could make something that was so powerful that someone else couldn't pick it up. So that was like, oh, okay, I guess that's something we should think about.
Kind of an arbiter. Yeah.
No.
Sorry, my speech is going at this point.
That's okay. So Perry says, honoring trees and nature is healing to you if you give the soil compost around the drip line, clean compost, no chemicals, and water them early in the morning. Give them appreciation and gratitude, which is not a bad thing to do. Eddie says, Vanessa, come back here. My first goddess was Hecate. She has been nothing but wonderful to me. To be honest, I don't think there is such a thing as a beginner deity. It's all about your mentality. Yeah, I tend to agree with that, because if you actually meet a deity, regardless of what type it is, it should be a shock to your system.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be rude.
If you really meet a deity, and it should be very clear. Desideradum says, I heard of a brownie who was heartbroken after a family's son was killed in World War II. They said he wailed in pain for years. Yep. Vanessa V says, yes, I've been doing plenty of shadow work in the past 2 years. I love the night. Good. Perry says, treatment of the environment like your beloved. The soil is sacred and needs care. Aphrodite says, true. Desideradum says, red fae are supposedly malevolent. Not sure I believe that. Okay, I don't know if I've met a red fae or not, so I don't know anything about it. Fire sprites, but they're not malevolent. Jonathan says, I have a tree who is an asshole. I shouldn't judge because I'm not always great. Siofra prompted me to make friends with that tree. I did. One of the best and most rewarding things I've ever done.
Cool.
EM says, Dear Siofra, I have another question. How far can we go when defending ourselves when people intentionally hurt us? The best way is ignoring them, but if we cannot because of the circumstances, when does self-protection become an attack? Well, depending. I asked this because I visualize things easily, and even without wanting it, images appear in my mind. I cannot control it. Depending on those images and the element I visualize, those people have sickness symptoms similar to that element. Maybe it's not me, but it repeats each time.
And that can happen. And
it's not common because usually it requires a lot more actual attention and focus, and intent kind of thing.
But that's why Barden starts out on his very first step is controlling your mind and your thoughts because of things like that, because they go out and you still get karma for them, even if you don't intend them to in a lot of cases. It depends on the person. Some people are naturally strong transmitters and some aren't. But the ones who are, that's why Barden starts with the first lesson being self-control. You control those things, get charge of your mind, and just don't give in to them, don't let them go out.
The best thing to do is to develop yourself, and learn overview. To get to the point where you can sort of see the big picture, and then you can determine more readily whether it's something that's actually dangerous to you or something that's just a stupid person acting like a stupid person. I don't run around. People can insult me or what have you. I don't care because I don't care what people think. But if I hadn't gotten to that point, it might generate that kind of reaction. You get angry with somebody saying untrue things about you and, then respond energetically and so forth. So the only time I use self-defense at this point is if someone's actually psychically attacking me. They have to actually make the effort to go through the motions. Thought forms, I can just dissolve them and make them go away, keep them out. I have my own protections that I use. I ground myself and keep my energy clear. But I don't allow other people's thoughts and ideas and reactions to dictate what I'm going to do and how I'm going to feel and what I'm going to respond to or not.
Yeah.
Which takes sometimes, that's why I have my 3-day rule. If I'm really upset with somebody, I just put that there for 3 days and just sit on it and wait it out, and then pick it back up and look at it, and then I can use more of an overview clarity with it because I'm not as emotionally, embroiled in what happened. Because, I'm human.
Yeah, my feeling is in self-defense stuff, the idea is to make them stop the offensive behavior.
Or at least stop doing it to you.
But not trying to squash somebody down and eliminate them or kill them magically or something. Make them stop the offensive behavior against you. And I feel that that's okay.
So Perry says, pick up trash wherever you go. Everything is very important to embrace with loving kindness and caring for the environment. Yep. Lod says, sorry if it's a bit off topic, but I've just made a wand from wisteria wood, and I'd really like to know your thoughts on it. I love wisteria. I think wisteria is a beautiful plant. I love the flowers that it makes. I don't know too much off the top of my head about its magical properties. So, I made wands from my rosemary bush. I got so big, my wands were pretty, thick. I've got some pretty thick ones at this point. So Jessica said, hi, Siofra. I'm late arriving, but it's nice to see you. Hi, Jessica. We're just about to the end. So welcome and goodbye at the same time. Luna says that Perry, totally with you on that. Never understood why people drop litter. Because they don't care about their environment, because they don't think it's about them. They don't think that their environment has anything to do with them. It's a separation problem. Vanessa V says, thank you, Rancho One. Perry says, EM, lessons of discernment. What you give, you will receive in your own life forward. Jonathan says, EM, you should email Siofra. I don't know why she cares for us, but she does. And while her advice is sometimes not what you want to hear, it is always what you need to hear. Good luck, sister. Well, I try to be clear. And it's all up to you anyway. Aphrodite says, how can you tell the difference between intuition and ego? Which is an incredibly good question and difficult to define. So this will be our last
Difficult
question.
to answer, yep.
Because it's almost an hour and 30 minutes already.
Yep.
So intuition and ego are not the same thing. Ego is mental, intuition is emotional and spiritual. And so ego usually is self-serving in some way. It's like
Always self-serving.
yeah, it's like that's the whole definition of what it is. Ego is trying to pump yourself up, make yourself more important. Intuition is giving you information about a situation or about a person. I mean, if you see somebody and your intuition yells at you and says, "We need to get the hell out of here," that's not your ego. That is your intuition, because your ego would not do that. I mean,
your
it's
ego
like,
might say, we're so powerful, we don't need to worry about it.
all right, but and with intuition, really, the better you know yourself, the more likely you are to understand when it's intuition. There's nothing wrong with knowing what you can do. That's not ego to me. Ego is not like, saying, I can do this really well, I know how to do this, and I'm skilled at it. That's just acknowledgement and knowing yourself. But ego is more like trying to get everybody else to think you're great about something. It's more external and pulling other people in. So that's what I think, as a quickie answer to a very complex process. All right, guys. So I see you all were saying goodbye to me, and
Desirata asked if you were selling any rosemary wood wands.
actually, I probably have some. I have to make some more wands. Right now, I've been going crochet crazy, to get my hand healed, and it's just about healed enough at this point that I can start working with the wand material and the crystals, and I've been thinking about it. I found a bag full of crystals a couple of weeks ago that I had forgotten I had. I'm like, ooh, bags of crystals. Yay! I can decorate things. So anyway, so thank you guys for making this a fun time for us, and we really enjoy doing our live shows. So bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Letting Ian get his last one in there.
I put 2 E's in blessed be.
Well, that's fine.
Blessed be.
All
That's
right.
a new one.
Okay, guys, everybody stay healthy out there and safe. So, and if you need to email me, shifrasmagicalcove@gmail.com, and you can send me a question, and that's fine.
Awesome.
So, bye, everybody.